Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your time today. And I believe, the number of attendees reflects how important the topic of today. So first, let me go through the agenda. And the very first topic, we're going to have a poll just to get an understanding from the audience, from your perspective, why some customers are struggling with the cloud implementation. And then in the second phase of today's webinar, and it's an important topic to cover, is understanding how people and organizations are reacting to change. So understanding behavior in reaction to change is extremely important into running an effective change management program. And then we're going to discuss Harvard professor John Kotter change model. So John Kotter came with an 8 steps change model, and we're going to try to map this change model to the cloud implementation or cloud transformation journey. And then another very important topic is understanding your stakeholders. So we'll shed a light on the stakeholders management, which is an integral part also of any change management program. And finally, we will also, on a high level, shed some lights on the best practices of implementation. So understanding best practices of implementation is definitely a very important element into designing an effective change management program. So this is, in a nutshell, the subjects that we are going to discuss today. And let me make it clear, this is only the tip of the iceberg of this subject. So change management is a very wide topic, and it will require maybe hours to be covered properly. However, in today's webinar, we're going to give you some tips and hints based on the academic research first, and then second, based on the interaction with hundreds of our customers, learning from their experience while implementing the cloud. So as usual, safe harbor statement. So the content in this presentation is not intended to support any purchasing decision. It's part of Oracle commitment to share knowledge and experiences with our customers and prospects. So let me introduce more myself. Maybe I missed that part. So my name is Ihab Hafiz. I am in charge of customer retention in East Central Europe, Middle East and Africa. I joined Oracle around 10 years back. I have an executive training from different organizations, including Harvard, INSEAD, and Telecom Academy. I have 24 years of experience assuming different roles, and half of my career I spent with customers before joining Oracle. So moving forward, and now we are going to launch our first poll just to get your opinion, why struggling with cloud implementation. So let me launch the poll. It will appear on your screen. Please vote for one option. What is the top? Definitely, it could be a collection of all of those factors. However, from your perspective, what do you think is the top reason why some customers are struggling with their cloud implementation? So let me launch this one. So why some customers are struggling with cloud implementation? Is it because cloud projects are run by technical team and too difficult to be digested by business people? Is it the resistance to change? So people are used to their legacy way of doing business and sitting in their comfort zone, so they are very reluctant to move to a new cloud application. Is it the lack of executive sponsorship to cloud projects and delayed decision-making process? Or is it the misalignment between the functionality expectations built during the sales cycle versus those delivered during the implementation? Very good. We have many people are voting. Just give it 30 seconds for everybody to read the different options and contribute with his or her opinion. Ten seconds more. You have more people contributing. Okay, almost 62% of the attendees voted. So I think this is a good number. So let me end the poll now and share the results. So I'm sharing the results now. So see, 9% of the attendees believe that why some customers are struggling with their cloud projects is because of the fact that the cloud projects are run by technical teams and too difficult to be digested. 31% of the attendees are referring this to resistance to change, so lack of change management. 17% refers to the lack of executives sponsorship, and finally 43% believe that this is the misalignment between functionality expectations built during sales cycle versus those delivered during the implementation. So, I mean, I have to be frank with you, it is very aligned with my expectations. And let me just take a screenshot of this poll, because it is extremely important for us also to know your feedback. And if you think about it, all of those are more or less related to change management. So the lack of executive sponsorship or the involvement of business in the cloud projects, or the misalignment of expectations, or the resistance to change are more or less part of lack of development, lack of execution of an effective change management program. So change is a fact. And you know the very famous saying that change is the only constant, and change is a part of any transformation that happens at the individual level or at the organization level. It happens in nature. If it is well planned, then we can flatten the change curve. If it's not, it can be very painful. But the only fact that I believe everybody agree on, that change is unavoidable. You remember just before this COVID crisis, you know, many organizations were sitting in their comfort zone. And then an external factor like COVID, a complete lockdown of the whole world, forced many organizations to start doing a very painful change process. I'm going to show you a video now, and please confirm to me if you can see the video. Let me just stop sharing here. I'll share the other content. So this video is showing you a very painful change process. And this change process is very important to the eagle to survive. So when the eagle reaches 40 years old, it will have a very important decision to make, either to go into a very painful change and live more, or not to change and die. Let us show this video quickly, and I think that will give a very good introduction to this change management thing.
This is the story of an eagle. An eagle has the longest lifespan of its species. It can live up to 70 years. But to reach this age, however, the eagle must make some tough decisions. In its 40th year, its long, flexible talons can no longer grab prey, which serve as food. Its long, sharp beak begins to bend. Its old, aged, and heavy wings, due to their thick feathers, stick to their chest and make it difficult to fly. Then the eagle is left with only two options: die or go through the painful process of change. The process requires that the eagle fly to a mountaintop and sit on its nest. There, it knocks its beak against a rock until it plucks it out. Then the eagle will wait for a new beak to grow before it plucks out the talons. When the new talons grow back, the eagle starts plucking its thick, heavy feathers. And after this, the eagle takes its famous flight of rebirth and lives for another 30 years. Why is the change needed? To survive and live. We too have to start the change process. We also have to pluck our unpleasant memories, negative habits, and fixed mindset. Only freed from the past burdens can we take advantage of the present. Let's soar again.
So why change is needed to live and survive, right? So I think this is inspiring to all of us, that the change cannot be avoided. And either we take a very painful change experience in sometimes to live and soar, or we just stick to whatever we have, and then we face many other challenges. And I believe what has been shown is also applicable to business. So, as I mentioned, in order to design an effective change management and recognize the phases of the change, we need to understand how people are reacting to change. So, Dr. John Fisher, he developed a model for change. And this model is composed of 8 different phases of how individuals are transitioning through the change curve. So what John Fisher is suggesting, that at the initial stages of the change, people go into an anxiety phase. asking themselves, can I cope with this change? They cannot picture the future state. And that's why, they start predicting what the change will look like. They will have a feeling of discomfort. This is at the very initial stages of the change. Now, as they move forward with the curve, this is the shortest normally stage in the curve. People start feeling excited and happy about the change, and some of them will say, eventually we're gonna have something to change. And if we step in as an organization or as a change agent at this stage and communicate more and reinforce this happiness phase, then we're gonna flatten the curve, and we should not definitely move through the same curve in all cases. So it is extremely important to leverage this short period of happiness and try to reinforce the feeling of people during this phase. However, normally people start moving to the next phase, which is the fear. So fear, people will feel that there will be some accidental change during this stage, but nothing completely is going to change. So I'm going to continue whatever I used to do, and there will be some few changes at this stage, but the feeling of fear will start to develop. And then they recognize at the next stage that this is not an incidental change. This is a very comprehensive change, and they will start feeling the threat. And I wouldn't exaggerate that I've seen in many organizations that people sees a new cloud implementation as a threat to their job, to their career, to their power, to their privileges. And that's why, they start feeling this threat, and sometimes they become very aggressive against this type of change. And then people move to the guilt. They recognize that this is a change, but they are not able to cope with this change, and they start feeling guilty. And sometimes they go even to a depression stage. Depression either because they are not coping with, or because their expectations was a bit different from what they started to see as per the poll. There is a misalignment between expectations and delivery. But then in some cases definitely it goes to hostility, but this is very rare cases. And then as we move throughout the change process, we start seeing some gradual acceptance, and people they start seeing that this change is healthy. They start having some acceptance. They start to live with the change, and finally they leave again. They start going back to normal, moving forward, and this will become the new norm. So it is extremely important to understand in which stage we are in this change process, because some programs are cloud projects are very complex. They have a very extensive scope. They have a huge transformation to the organization. So the more we recognize in which stage we are in this curve, we can design the right communication method. And in the next slide, actually, John Fisher model is an evolution to another very popular and very famous change curve model called Kubbler-Ross, under the name of Elizabeth Kubbler-Ross, who designed also maybe less number of stages. The change, the Kubbler-Ross change curve, it is almost aligned with John Fisher, but with less stages. And in this, in this diagram, we can see a suggested communication mood. So, for example, when people they are in anxiety, what we mentioned in case of John Fisher, in the shock stage, or in the denial stage, where they are still trying to digest what the impact of this change to them. They are trying to picture the future state of the change. In this stage, it is much better to focus on providing clarity. Explain to people what is this change about, how to deal with it, what's in it for their organization, and so on. In the phase of acceptance that might lead, accepting that the change is coming, that might lead to anger, it is important to empathize to show empathy with people, to understand their concerns and fears, and communicate again to reinforce the acceptance to the change. And when they reach the stage of depression, which is the misalignment with their expectations, the fears on their jobs and roles and privileges, it is important to communicate with motivational messages, so that we pick them up from the depression stage to the experimental stage in this case, and where at this stage people will start saying, let's try it, let's see what is this new implementation about, what is the solution about. And in this time of the change curve, it is important to promote the capability of people and build confidence that they can cope with. And when they make the decision to adapt to the change, it is very important to build the knowledge and increase the competencies of the people to start accepting and dealing with the implementation and with the new solution. So once again, once you understand more about what is the stage that we are passing through in the change curve, you can design the right messages. You can send the right messages through the different channels to flatten the curve. And let me emphasize here, it's not necessarily that every organization or every individual passes through all the stages, but this is a general findings from hundreds of people or businesses who were the subject of monitoring before developing those curves. So let me launch the second poll just also to get some your ideas on a certain scenario. So let me launch the second poll. I'll give you some break also. I'll launch the second one. So communication mode based on the stage. So this is the poll. I hope you can see it. Okay. So based on Kubbler-Ross change model, the question here, just to refresh our mind, saying based on Kubbler-Ross change model, what is the appropriate action communication when organization passes through the depression stage? So this is the time to use to build the organization knowledge. Is it the time to enforce action? Is it the time to motivate and inspire? Or is it the time to sympathize with people and show understanding? What do you think is the right communication message at this stage? But definitely there is no, there is no standard answer. You might see it in different ways, but I see that the majority are, are agreeing on one answer. So we have almost, 54% of people answering. Just 5 more seconds, and then we'll end the poll. Okay, so let me show you the results. So the majority agreed that when the organization or individuals are passing through the depression stage, it is the time to motivate and inspire people. So it is very important to understand and sense where the organization or individuals are in the change curve. And let me also be clear, individual might not be at the same stage for the whole organization, but normally throughout the change curve, you'll find the majority sitting into certain stage, and you have to design the messages to individuals based on different their different states. And so some organizations might be a different curve compared to others. However, the general communication should be aligned with the stage where people are sitting in. So let's continue. And there's another Harvard professor called John Kotter. John Kotter developed 8 steps change model. And those 8 steps have been tested by many business leaders into running transformational programs, whether in IT domain or business process review domain, or in different business domains, and found to be very effective change model. So this change model, as I mentioned, is composed of 8 steps. However, you can divide it into 3 different stages. So the very first stage is creating climate for change. And this is divided into 3 steps: create urgency, form a powerful coalition, create vision for change. And the second phase goes into engaging and enabling the organization. So communicate the vision, empower action, and create quick wins. And finally, implementing and sustaining for the change. It has 2 steps: build on the change and make it stick. So let's try to relate this business change model to the different stages of a cloud implementation. So create urgency. So there is a very okay. So there's a very big difference between a need for change and want for change. So if we manage to create the urgency and create the drivers in the organization that this cloud implementation is wanted, not only needed, it will definitely boost and accelerate the change management program. So here are some suggestions. Definitely you can come with many other suggestions. So how first create forums where issues and potential solutions are raised. So if you gather people into different focus groups, into brainstorming sessions, and try to brainstorm with them what we are facing today with the legacy. What are the opportunities that we are missing by not implementing the cloud solutions? How can the cloud solution help us to grow and sustain our business? So this is the very first thing into creating that kind of urgency. So it's not about only a management decision to change. It's not only about cost optimization or scalability, but there are many other opportunities for individual and organization that we are missing by not going to this change. And as I mentioned, it's issues and then opportunities. Picture how success will look like. I have been into many exercises, into many workshops where we ask the people to picture how the life will look like after implementing the cloud solution. What would be the new norm? What are the business opportunities that we can capture by moving to the cloud, keeping in mind that the cloud is a tool that will help you into achieving your business objectives, and not the implementation of the cloud is a business objective by itself. So the cloud is the tool that will help us to have to achieve the mobility, the business scalability, the enablement for the organization to capture the business opportunities in the market. Now the second part of John Kotter model is to build the guiding team. And building the guiding team is extremely important step in this change model. So don't think ever that there is a one hero, whatever capabilities, whatever communication skills can lead the whole change process by himself or herself. So it is extremely important to build this guiding team, a team made of range of skills, range of experience, representing different business areas. They have the power. So a team who can make decisions. So they are empowered team. They have good understanding for the IT and business process. They can dedicate time. That's a very important factor. And they have a strong motive to make the success. I worked in one of the organizations where one of the cloud implementation team, she decided to postpone her wedding until the project go live. So imagine the type of motive, the type of motivation she has to postpone her wedding until the project go live. And I remember that the CEO of that organization rewarded her by taking the cost of all the wedding expenses. So it was both sides motivation, from the management and from the guiding team. So building the guiding team is extremely important as well. Building the vision, and we mentioned in the creating urgency, that people need to picture the future, and to picture the future there should be a vision built. So here I'm just providing an example for a cloud implementation vision. So our vision is to enable a seamless customer and employee experience. So we are relating to the customer employee experience, shorten the business cycles, and avail the right products at the right time to the right customer at their right location with the right quality. So the repetition of the right, it will stick also in the mind. Adopting the vision should double our revenue. So we are trying to link this vision to smart KPIs, and some realistic measurables KPI that will stick in mind and will motivate the whole organization to move towards achieving this objective. So this is only an example. People can come with different ones, but it's simple. It is linked to the KPIs. It is mentioning the employees as well as the customers. So people and the organization will start feeling the importance and what's in it for them after going live. Avoid complexity when building the vision. Don't try to make it very complex with fancy words, and eventually it will not stick, or it will not be understandable at the organization or individual level, and make it inspirational. Link it to some realistic KPIs. Don't exaggerate when you build this vision. The fourth step, as per John Kotter model, is communicate for buy-in. So communication is extremely important component into any change management program. So communicate the messages using the right channel at the right time. And when we discussed the change curve of Kubbler-Ross and John Fisher, we said we need to send the right message at the right time. We have seen some organizations, for example, they are branding their cloud projects. I've seen organizations call it Falcon Project, Transform, many good names, and it becomes a very well respected brand in the, because you have many projects in the organization, so they brand those projects. By the way, if you have any question, please post it to the Q&A, and I'll try to address it towards the end of this webinar. Use the coalition team to spread the message. This is very important as well. So as I mentioned, if you build the right team, you can leverage their network into passing those messages at the right time to the right people. Make it repetitive and innovative. So you need to use different channels. Don't only rely on email. Don't only rely on workshops. You use different ways of communication, and you need to leverage also the power of social media, the internal social media to your organization. Welcome feedback is also extremely important item. So do not underestimate any feedback. Take it into consideration. Use it as a tool to tune the different messages, to improve, and even to tune the vision. So number 5 step, as per John Kotter model, is to empower action. So you need to be nice, definitely. You need to be inspirational. However, you come to a stage where you have to start taking actions. And I like the saying of, if you want to make everybody happy, sell an ice cream and don't be a leader. So sometimes you need to empower actions. And here are some, suggested steps. First, you need to identify obstacles. Let me see, there's a, A question coming here: how can we raise awareness with customer not really owning a cloud implementation, not having the right operational setup in place? What is the responsibility of a cloud vendor? By Corina. I will come to that question, Corina. So identify obstacles. So we need to recognize that some jobs will be impacted. I mean, this is the nature of the automation. Some might lose some privileges because they have a very wide span of control, and with the automation they lose part of this control, and some might lack the right skills, the computer literacy, to deal with the new solution. And then once you identify those, you need to plan how to break them through. So how you want to overcome those challenges? Maybe you need to design some new jobs based on the automation level, and those jobs are focusing more on monitoring and control rather than focusing on data entry or the administrative jobs. You need also to create change agents and spread them, and here you can use the coalition power help to overcome those challenges. And finally, you need to establish a change request governance. So you might have many requests. Those requests are not within the scope, so you might have scope creep. So you need to develop and implement a very strong change governance in terms of the change request, aligning them with the budget, assessing the impact on the business and the scope and the cost of the implementation. Okay, so moving forward, create short-term wins. This is the step number 6 in John Kotter model. It is, especially in the complex programs implementations, you might have several months implementation program. So would you delay, celebrating or recognizing people until you go live with all phases? I don't think this is the right answer. So it is important to identify quick wins, celebrate the completion of those quick wins. The kickoff project might be an opportunity to celebrate the completion of different milestones, like the go live for the first phase, maybe finishing the end user acceptance and testing, switching the legacy. So try to identify and celebrate those quick wins and use those to justify the investments and to encourage people, to boost the morale and create and increase the momentum for this program to continue. Step number 7, this is also very important. Do not let up. So sometimes, you think yourself, you reach the end, you start celebrating, but you do not keep monitoring. So do not finish prematurely. Do not rush the results. Do not try to force people to provide a feedback that you'd like to hear. Hear them very carefully. Do not let up. Encourage feedback. Keep analyzing what could have been done better, and use this as an opportunity to keep tuning the implementation. And do not ignore any issue, because the small stones can be very, very big and blocking the road. So the final step in John Kotter model: make the change stick, and do not release the senior stakeholders until you make sure that this is the new norm and the changes stick. People understanding what's in it, and they can they cope with it. Reward individual and teams who embrace the change, and finally maintain the communications and develop the ongoing feedback channel. So let's go to our third poll, just to get an idea also of the John Kotter model. So let me launch it now, the third poll. Okay, so the third poll is about John Kotter change model. And the question here is, based on John Kotter model, what is the step that you start to create the want for change rather than the need for change? Is it empower action, or is it create short-term wins, build the guiding team, or create urgency? What do you think is the right answer based on the 8 steps of John Kotter model? Okay, 15 minutes, seconds more. We'll end up the poll. Okay, we have good, more than 50% of people contributed to this. So I'm just gonna end it up. I'll share the results. So, yeah, I believe the majority have got it right. So create urgency is the step that will reinforce the want for change rather than the need for change. So stakeholders management, as we mentioned, is also an extremely important element in the change management. And in this diagram, the power interest grid, it shows, in the horizontal axis, the level of interest for the stakeholders. So stakeholder is any person or organization or external party impacted by the cloud implementation. So the higher the interest, it means it will impact them more. The higher the power, it means people who can influence the direction of the implementation. So obviously, if you have people with high interest, so they are very impacted with the change, and they have also a high power, those people you need to manage closely. And for people who are with high interest, but they do not have enough power to influence or make decisions, you need to keep them informed. And people with high power, but they are not very interested with the scope of your project, like an engineering department, for example, in an ERP project, who can, an executive in the engineering department, maybe not very impacted by the scope of the implementation. So they are not interested, but they have a high power. You need to keep them satisfied. And finally, invest the minimal efforts with people with low interest and low power, so they cannot make decisions, and they are not very impacted with the scope of the implementation. So an example in a cloud implementation. So for example, executive managements like CFO, CIO, CMO, all the C-level people with high power and high interest. The key interest for them, for example, you need to understand the key interest to make sure that the project meets the timelines, budgets, and achieve the business objectives. Those guys you need to manage closely. You need to communicate regularly with them. And what kind of communication? You need to maintain regular update on the project progress, ask for their intervention in case of major decisions through the project governance or the steering committee. You need to invite them to the major workshops where major decisions are made. For example, key users, those people also are with high power and high interest, but their interest is a bit different because they want to make sure the solution will address the key business requirements. It will increase the span of control on the business and monitoring. So again, those people you need to manage closely, communicate regularly by maintaining regular communications with them, invite them to the different workshops, listen to their feedback with open mindset. Many times in many cloud projects, we ignore some major stakeholders who are the external stakeholders, like customers, suppliers. So if you are implementing the iSourcing or iSupplier or the e-commerce platform, those are also a main stakeholder. So this is an example of a low power. Maybe they cannot influence because they are a big community, but high interest. And in this scenario, you need to keep those guys satisfied. You need to consult through focus groups. So you nominate top customers, make a focus group, give their feedback about the new e-commerce platform or the new marketing platform, and so on. And you need to develop training programs to make sure that they are aware of the new changes. It is very communicated to them at the right time, and they can deal with the new platform at the right time. And an example of people with low power and low interest is the employees of departments which is completely not impacted by the solution. So you keep them informed, you invest the minimal effort with them. However, you need also to keep them informed. Now, moving to the next topic, which is also equally important, living in the cloud. And let me highlight here that, living in the cloud, we are running a very comprehensive webinar under the name of onboarding, where we cover all those concepts in the very detail. So please make sure that you attend the next one. However, also understanding how to live in the cloud is very important to run an effective change management program. And here I divided it into four different areas of understanding the implementation best practices. So first, you need to develop the environment strategy and manage the update. So based on the project complexity, the phasing approach, and the service level agreement with the different business stakeholders, you need to decide on the number of environment, which environment is used for which purposes. The standard, Oracle Cloud environments comes with a production and test environment. However, if you have a very complex program with huge complexity and a very big organization, I have seen some customers going to 3 and sometimes 4 and 5 different environments for different purposes. Managing the quarterly update is also very important topic. So you need to run the quarterly updates. Every 3 months, you're gonna have an update from Oracle coming with hundreds of features. So you need to manage the process of applying the quarterly updates. Learn how to work effectively with support. The second area is the implementation methodology. And I know that, Oracle came with Oracle Unified Method. It is Oracle True Method. If Oracle Consulting is implementing, it might be under different names by different partners. The main components in the implementation methodology are 3 components. First, you need to make sure that your users are exposed early enough in the implementation process, and you do not leave their first exposure to the application until late stages, because seeing is believing. And second, the implementation should be based on solution-driven approach, especially when it comes to the ERP applications, and not requirements-driven approach. You don't want to end up translating your legacy way of doing things into the cloud application. Business process flow rather than modular-driven approach. So, maybe in the legacy way of doing things, people used to do things in silos. However, now this is a very integrated application. So you need to make sure that you are running the different discussions or business discussions into a business process rather than modular way. Agree on project strategies at the early stage. And I've seen many, unfortunately, customers ignoring this. You need to decide on your project strategies at the very early stages and do not leave it till the end. What kind of strategies? The data migration strategy, the testing strategy, the training strategy, integration, phasing, communication, go live, and phasing approach. You need to make a strict decision. And we are running also another webinar focusing more on the go live strategy and what are the different decisions you need to make sure it's clear and available to make that strategy. So the early decision on the project strategy helps to boost the change management process. Agree on post-production support model. That's another important factor in the cloud implementation. And connect with Oracle customers. So you have Oracle Customer Connect. It's a great platform to collaborate with other customers, to learn from their experience, even to influence the product roadmap. You can create ideas, ask others to vote for it, and influence Oracle product roadmap. So let's keep in mind that there is a learning curve, and we discussed the learning curve. So initial attempts might not be the best. Manage business changing priorities and stay focused. Ensure there is a buffer in your planning to accommodate the the learning curves. Identify successors and backup options. and finally ensure the support team readiness to mitigate connectivity and technical challenges. So that will, we are at the end now of this webinar. As I mentioned, this is a very big topic, but I tried to cover as much as we can, give you different hints. So we try to understand how individuals and organizations are reacting to change. We discussed John Kotter model, which is a very widely accepted change management model to different initiatives, and cloud can be one. Cloud implementation can be one of those. We try to cover as much as we can some of the implementation best practices in terms of methodology, in terms of environment strategy, and as I mentioned, this is covered with more details and the onboarding, and finally highlighting the change curve again, just to remind everybody with the change curve and the learning curve. So I'm done with my presentation today. I tried to be as quick as possible. Let me see, we have, I think, some questions here. So Corina says, how can we raise awareness with the customers not really owning a cloud implementation, not having the right operational setup? So I mean, it's the collection of all the different learnings from today's webinar, Corina. So we need to make sure that we have the right stakeholders engaged. We need to create the vision, try to review the John Kotter model and develop a change management plan along with the executive management. And definitely when those customers made that decision to go with the cloud implementation, they made a conscious decision, and they need this decision. They need this solution. So we need to work with the executive management, considering all the learnings that we got today. Grace asked about, can we suggest to the customer to have a dedicated person to manage the change, adding to the PM? It depends, Grace, on the complexity and the scope and the size of the cloud implementation. And definitely, I've seen many customers, especially in the big multinational organizations, they are dedicating a full team to the change management, and they are running initiatives. They're sending surveys, they're getting feedback, they are implementing the different activities related to the change. So yes, definitely, it could be a person, it could be a team of people, it could be a third-party organization to run those change management programs. Lisa is asking, it would be great if Oracle, can we get some more information related to the degree of change of new functionality that come during quarterly updates or some training material? Lisa, we have very, very comprehensive, actually, material comes way before the new release. So if you go to Customer Connect, you will understand exactly what are the features, what are the mandatory features, what are the type of features impact which area, and those are not a mandatory feature, so you can select which one you need for your business based on the priority and roll it out, train the people, and go for it. And honestly, Lisa, I strongly recommend that you attend the next onboarding webinar, because we cover in the very details the updates, how to do the testing of those updates, how to prepare for those updates, what are the do's and don'ts, and what type of information and where do you find the information about those updates. So I guess I answered the 3 questions here in the Q&A. Any further questions, team? So please, if you don't have further questions, when I end this webinar, you're going to get a survey. I really appreciate if you can fill in the survey. I hope that that today's subject covered or met your expectations. I know, as I mentioned, those are the eyes of the tip of the iceberg, but at least it was a bit useful to you to formulate an understanding about how to run a change management in your organization. And I'll be very happy if you want to consult me with me or any of the team further about our experience with the change management. So thank you so much. It was really an honor to talk to you today, and hopefully we're gonna meet soon. Thank you so much. Have a good day.